You're listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network.
You're listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast, the most listened to daily Miami Dolphins podcast on the internet. Come on, Dolphins fans. Time to fins up.
All right, Miami! Miami's got the Dolphins, the greatest football team. We take the ball from goal to goal like no one's ever seen. We're in the air, we're on.
Hello, Miami Dolphins fans. How are you today? And thank you for listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast on this Monday, March 25th. I am your host, Michael Leva. And we have a lot to talk about in the world of the Miami Dolphins, as Miami Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel Monday morning, bright and early, spoke with the media at the annual NFL owners meetings. And a lot of topics came up that we're going to dive into and talk about on the show, because some interesting answers were given by the Dolphins head coach. But before we get to any of that, as always, a big shout out to everyone listening at finheaven.com. Everyone go to finheaven.com, the largest Miami Dolphins message board on the internet. Also, a big shout out to our friends at the I Am a Miami Dolphins fan Facebook page run by the great and talented Carlos Hernandez. If you're on Facebook, please be sure you are part of the I Am a Miami Dolphins fan Facebook page. And wherever you're listening to this podcast, whether it's Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, Audible, Podbean, Podchaser, or any of the hundreds of platforms we are on, hit that subscribe button now. I'll wait. Hit the subscribe button. No, really, hit it. Because we have shows almost every day of the week this offseason, keeping you up to date on all things Miami Dolphins. When we get to the draft, to get closer to April, we're going to have shows diving deep into the draft and what the Dolphins might do with picks 21 and 55. So you're not going to want to miss an episode. So subscribe to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network wherever you're listening to this podcast. First bit of news, the NFL announced more international marketing rights. So right now, every team is able to market themselves in foreign countries outside of the United States. And for the Dolphins, it was the United Kingdom, Spain, and Brazil. Well, as of Monday, the Dolphins can also market themselves in Mexico, Argentina, and Colombia. So there are now 6 countries across the globe the Dolphins can market themselves. And yes, when that means in the future, if there's going to be an international game in Mexico, Dolphins might be tied to it. When there's going to be an international game in Brazil after this year, the Dolphins are going to be tied to it. Same with Spain, same with Argentina, same with Colombia, as we already know, the United Kingdom. So just more countries here where we might see the Dolphins forfeit a home game in years to come to play. And so Mexico, Argentina, and Colombia are the 3 new teams. Or the 3 new countries, I should say. The contract information for Shaq Barret came out on Monday. It's a 1-year deal worth $7 million, 6.75 guaranteed. Miami added 4 void years at the end of this deal, which is kind of weird. It's a 1-year contract, add 4 void years. That's what they did. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more later, so I don't want to dive into it now. But that's the contract. And you'll see why later on in the show when I talk about a subject, I'm going to bring this up again. So put pause on this as I'll mention it again later. Mike McDaniel was asked about the Dolphins' interest in Odell Beckham Jr. He was in last week for a visit, and Mike McDaniel said, we did make him an offer. He's had a phenomenal career, and he has really good football ahead of him. So he has options. Business takes time, but I would enjoy coaching him. And then Mike McDaniel went on to say that the conversations will be ongoing. As I said over the weekend on the show I did, the Dolphins don't play a game till September. There is no rush here. We will see if the Dolphins end up signing Odell Beckham Jr. As Mike McDaniel said, they made him an offer. And this is probably going to remind us of what happened last year with Dalvin Cook when he was a free agent. Dolphins made him an offer. Cook went out there, contemplated it, found an offer that paid more, and he ended up signing with the Jets. Odell Beckham, not that he's the same type of player as Cook. They play 2 different positions, but he has an offer, and he'll, wait, and this might go into June, this might go into July, this might go into August. This will probably go up until training camp, if not sooner, until Odell Beckham has a number in his head, and once a team meets it or comes close enough, he'll sign the piece of paper. And if a team doesn't come close, then he'll probably circle back to Miami's offer, which might be the best offer he has right now, and he'll sign here. But again, there's no rush. Kind of is what it is. But Mike McDaniel seems very excited at the possibility of having Odell Beckham on the Dolphins, and I can see why. Again, I know he's 32, he's had some injuries, but with the Rams, he was part of their Super Bowl run and actually made a big play in the Super Bowl before he got hurt. And with the Ravens last year, the numbers aren't earth-shattering, but again, he's signing as a backup. You don't need the numbers to be earth-shattering. You need him to be a piece of a rotation in the wide receiver room. And, there is no drama. There's been no drama with Odell Beckham and since he left Cleveland. So I think fans who are still holding on to that need to move past it. Odell Beckham's fine, and we'll see if he ends up in Miami or not. Mike McDaniel was asked about Tyreek Hill, because we all know Tyreek Hill lives an eventful life off the field. And all the incidents that's happened just since the end of last year alone, not counting what happened last season, obviously with the plus-size model in his yard, with the leg being break, with her breaking her leg, the comedy show incident, even though he left before the fight broke out, it was centered around him. The paternity suits, filing for divorce, smashing a cigar in his wife's face, although he says he only flicked it, he didn't smash it. There's a lot going on. So he was asked about all of the off-the-field stuff with Tyreek. And Mike McDaniel said, and I quote, "One of the things from our perspective is I think it's very important as an organization that we're in the avenue of finding, gathering, and learning all information possible. Our communication with him has been phenomenal." He went on to say, "Working through various things is part of the coach-player relationship. You don't wish unfortunate things on anyone. But our number one obligation to both the player and the organization is to find out all the information possible, then work with the player. And in Tyreek's case, we've been very transparent. He's been very candid with us, and we're working with him on all of those things." That's a lot of words that pretty much said, we're trying to find out what's going on here because we don't even have all the information. That's Mike McDaniel throwing out through a word salad to pretty much say that. And it does kind of lead back to what I've been saying in previous weeks. This offseason, the Dolphins had 4 mega contracts they could restructure to open up cap space. They did it with Jaylen Ramsey. They did it with Armstead. They did it with Chubb. Who's the one player they haven't done it with? Tyreek Hill. Which is crazy because Tyreek Hill is a Hall of Famer and the best player on the Dolphins roster, but they haven't restructured it. And this answer is a roundabout way of saying why they haven't, kind of, because they probably don't trust him anymore, and they don't have all the information of what's going on with all these incidents, and it has them spooked. It has them a little worried, and I get it, because what Mike McDaniel said there was not a blanket defense of Tyreek Hill. They're taking a wait-and-see approach of any new information that comes in before really doing anything here. And I'm sure if they get a bunch more information and Tyreek Hill is just the most unlucky guy in the world, they will restructure that contract. They will open up a lot of salary cap space, be tied to Tyreek longer term, and then have more money to maybe, give an extension to Holland, or maybe take some of that money and work an extension with Waddle or Jaylen Phillips. But they're not going to take that leap of faith and restructure Tyreek's deal, because right now they can move on from Tyreek after 2 more seasons. They can't do it before, and you can't trade him. So after 2024, 2025, then you can move on from Tyreek and be, you know what, he's another team's headache. We're done. And that's the option they're leaving open right now. And this answer he gave today kind of shows you why. They're working with him. They're trying to get more information, and it's very unfortunate because the Dolphins need Tyreek Hill so bad. He has been someone who's changed the way this organization's viewed. Prior to him, it's been just no offense in Miami, slow, plodding, no big plays. Tyreek's come here, and the Dolphins are one of the top 3-5 offenses every year. Number 1 last year, since he's been here, Tyreek, but they were number 1 in 2023 because of what Tyreek Hill brings. But you can't tie yourself to a guy long term here from this point forward until you find out if he's all there on some level. And hopefully he does straighten out his life and sort of figure things out. Again, people change. Like with Odell, his first years in the league, there was a lot going on off the field. There was a lot of drama, a lot of infighting in the locker rooms. Past few years, that's gone away. And he's turned around his life, and, he is what he is at this point as a wide receiver. With Tyreek, it's not even about the play on the field. We know he's great there. There's nothing to worry about there. But it's the other stuff off the field. It's like any organization, any coach can only put up with so much there. So Mike McDaniel said all the right things. We'll see where it goes, but it's something worth monitoring for sure. Absolutely. The big takeaway from the media session, though, was when Mike McDaniel was asked about play calling. And he was asked if he was going to give up play calling duties this offseason. Because, I know it seems like they just played a game in January, the Dolphins, and it's March, but it seems like it was so long ago that everyone's kind of forgot how 2023 ended. And the way it ended was with Miami's offense sputtering down the stretch of the season and just not being able to put up points. Like, even the win against the Cowboys on Christmas Eve, they scored one offensive touchdown. The offense was not good. They kicked a bunch of field goals, and long field goals, but they could only muster one offensive drive in that game. And this was discussed after the playoff loss. Like, is there too much on the plate of Mike McDaniel? Is he too involved with the offense that it's hurting the rest of the team? And should he give up play calling duties? And he addressed it after the playoff loss to the Chiefs and that sort of post-season, when the season's over, press conference and stuff, saying, I have to look into it. I don't know. It might be something that's an option. So he was asked about it now at the end of March. And when asked about it, he said he thought long and hard about giving up the play calling, but he won't in the spring, meaning the OTAs and the minicamp, and he won't as of now in the fall, meaning the regular season. But he did throw out there that he would adjust if necessary. So he's not closing the door saying, no, I'm calling the plays, that's it. He left, I'm going to call it in the spring like I always have. I'm going to start off the regular season calling the plays like I always have. But he would adjust if necessary. He's leaving that option out there. And I like that a lot from Mike McDaniel. I have my qualms with him at times with some of the things he does and some of his, not just play calling, but just overall managing of a team, managing of a game. But this is the guy I like, and that he won't just slam the door and, I'm calling plays, that's it, it's over. He's leaving it out there. You know what? If we get off to a slow start and it's not working, maybe I will pass it off to Frank Smith, let him call the play. So I like that he left it open. I like that a lot. It shows me someone who has some self-awareness, even though he never follows through on some of the things he says at times, but it's there clearly. And I know once this came out today, it's like there's a portion of the Miami Dolphins fan base who doesn't even understand why he was asked this question. And why is this even up for debate? Dolphins had the number one offense. Why would you even ask him this question? And it's like the question was asked because you can have the number one offense, but if you don't win anything, it doesn't matter. And for 2 years in a row now, not one, two, Mike McDaniel's first 2 years as head coach of the Dolphins, they were 8-3 and 9-3, and at each of those points, teams caught on to the Dolphins offense. And once they caught on, the offense stopped operating in November and December, and then into January, and the Dolphins didn't win anything. They blew the AFC East both years, and they didn't win in the playoffs. And I know some of you are now screaming, but injuries, but injuries, but injuries. When the Dolphins were 8-3, they lost 4 games in a row with Tua. It wasn't injuries. And last year, most of the injuries were on defense, not offense. And again, against the Titans late in the game, if Tua just gets one first down, they can take a knee, they win. He doesn't, they punt, Titans score. Then you just got to give him a field goal range. Couldn't even do that. Offense let him down, or let down the head coach. And then versus the Bills, they couldn't score. They couldn't score versus the Bills. And then they couldn't score versus the Chiefs. And, it was cold for both teams that day. So, and let me say this before I dive into this more. I am not saying Mike McDaniel should give up the play calling. I'm saying the conversation needs to be had, and I'm glad Mike McDaniel thought long and hard about it. Because here's, for the segment of the fans that don't understand why this is even being talked about or why Mike McDaniel should give up play calling, the answer is simple. As an NFL head coach, which Mike McDaniel is, he's not an offensive coordinator, he's a head coach. You are responsible for the entire team. So for someone like McDaniel, he cannot get lost in the weeds of play calling and just ignore the failure that's been special teams or ignore what's going on with the defense as he has his third coordinator in 3 years. And he cannot ignore the other smaller things like replay challenges. And while there is no debate, Mike McDaniel is a great play designer, there are questions about whether he's a great play caller. Situational play calling is not Mike McDaniel's strength. Yes, when he's playing the Giants, the Jets, the Patriots, and the bad teams, he will run up and down the field, and they'll put up a ton of points, a bunch of flashy plays, and that will inflate the numbers. When he plays the Ravens, Bills, Chiefs, and even the Cowboys, like I said, good teams, the offense doesn't perform. And that's where the problem is. And then situational play calling, how many times have we seen a Dolphins game, including the playoff game, where you're running the ball 4 or 5 yards a carry, you get to 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1, you throw in a pass for some reason. It's like, just turn and hand off, you're getting 5 yards a carry. They haven't stopped it. Make them prove they can stop it. Same thing versus the Bills. They couldn't stop it. There was a game versus the Bills in 2022 in Buffalo, in the snow, in Orchard Park. They ran for 180 yards through 3 quarters. In the 4th quarter, they stopped running. I think the end of the game was like 183 or something. I mean, they didn't run the ball. It's like, you have the lead. The situational play calling is where Mike McDaniel comes up short. And again, I want him designing the plays, but maybe letting someone like Frank Smith actually call the plays in game where he can focus on that solely ain't the worst idea in the world. And by him being hyper-focused on the offense, maybe that's a reason the Dolphins never win a replay challenge. In 2 seasons as head coach of the Dolphins, Mike McDaniel's thrown that red flag 13 times. He's only won 3. 13 times he's thrown that flag. He's only won 3. Well, how can you, when you're an offensive play caller and you don't know, when you're worried about what's the next play, what's the last play just called, where are we down in distance? Oh, wait, something's got to be challenged. And you're just, like, you can't be everything at all times to all people. And, some guys can. Sean Payton's won Super Bowl, and he's a play caller. And same thing with Andy Reid. And maybe someday Mike McDaniel would get there. I'm not saying he can't. But right now, this is clearly an issue where he never wins a challenge. It's like one of the worst records for a head coach when it comes to challenges. And if he had less on his plate, maybe he'd be able to, focus more on that aspect to give Miami some free plays here when there's a bad call from the ref and not lose timeouts. Also in the game versus the Ravens last year on December 31st, Mike McDaniel after the game, when he was asked, why was Bradley Chubb on the field in garbage time? The game was over. You already lost. He goes, well, we had a turnover. Things were happening so fast. I couldn't keep up. And then I couldn't find him in time to take him off the field because you're worried too much about the offense. And a head coach, if he's not worried about calling plays, once the turnover happens, can say, now we're on defense. Look, you, Chubb, get out of there. I don't need you out there in garbage. But things are happening so fast, and he's so focused on the offense. What happens? Bradley Chubb tears his ACL a few minutes later, and now he's going to miss most of the 2024 season, or however much he's going to miss. It's going to be substantial, and now we're behind the 8 ball heading into 2024 with no Bradley Chubb. Then, after the playoff loss to the Chiefs, Tua, in the post-game press conference, still in his uniform, in the nicest way possible, because it is Tua, threw Mike McDaniel kind of under the bus. I have the quotes right here. Question to Tua. The Chiefs seem to have a lot of success on their blitzes. Was that something you guys just haven't seen before, or just missed the execution? Tua, I would attest that the communication errors that we've had, he goes, I would attest that to the communications errors that we've had. Am I hearing the right formation? Okay, we're getting out, but we have 2 motions that we have to use. Then there's maybe 9 seconds left on the clock, and we're motioning. Now it's about 5 seconds, and we don't have time to change. So now we've got to play, and we've got to go through where our hots are, and we would then get pressured. Meaning there's too much happening on the offense where the play is being sent in late, and then they got to go through their motions, and then there's no time left on the play clock for him to audible. That's what he's saying there, too, in the nicest way possible. Then he was asked the next question, what went wrong late this season on third down? He goes, like I said, there's been some communication errors and things like that. We can't do that. Tua is pretty much openly pleading, saying this isn't working, where we're sending in these plays late, and after the motions, I have no time to audible, and teams are just sort of teeing off on us. And that's why it's at least a fair question to have with taking the play calling away from Mike McDaniel. Again, Mike McDaniel said he's going to hold on to it in the spring. He's going to hold on to it early in the season, and that's fine. Once again, when you have the number one offense, that's fine. He's entitled to do that. But if 2024 starts off where we see the same mistakes, the same errors, and it's costing them games, especially for teams that are good, I do hope he does have it in him to then, as he said, adjust and give it up and let Frank Smith call the plays and try something new. Because what is the definition of insanity? We know that. Because here, it's just doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And if you just listen to Tua and what he's saying, if you saw what happened to Chubb, if you just look at the record on challenges, Mike McDaniel, as a young head coach, has a ton on his plate. And if this was a rebuilding team, that's fine. We all learn and grow together. This is a team with expectations to win. And it's got players making big money to win divisions and possibly a Super Bowl. We ain't got time for on-the-job training, okay? And if that means Mike McDaniel, if he gives up play calling to Frank Smith, lets him focus more on the challenges, lets him focus more on making sure guys aren't out there in garbage time, possibly being hurt, and even if it allows him to be more involved with special teams, where we know we've been poor for like the longest time now with our coordinator, to sort of make sure things are right in that aspect of the game, then the team's going to be better overall. Again, Mike McDaniel, I'm not saying he should give up the play calling duties, and he's the best play designer I've ever seen, but play designer and play caller are two different things. Some people make sausage, some people cook sausage. Mike McDaniel making the sausage is an A+. When it comes to cooking the sausage, you can let someone else sometimes do that and still have a great meal at the end of the day, and that's kind of what I'm saying, but we'll see how it goes. And I like, again, that he is at least leaving it out there that he will adjust if things don't go well. When Mike McDaniel was asked about Tua, because here's the deal. Once again, I know some people don't want to believe it. Reality, he's getting a long-term extension for a ton of money. But that might not be done until the summer, and there's going to be voluntary OTAs and mini camps before then. Mike McDaniel said he expects Tua to show up to all the OTAs, even the voluntary ones, as his team and the Dolphins work on this long-term extension. He does not think Tua will hold out. If this goes into training camp, I would think Tua still wouldn't hold out, because here's the deal. There is so much money at stake with this type of contract extension for a quarterback. Many players would not show up for voluntary OTAs or mini camps to avoid a risk of injury, i.e. Connor Williams last year. But with quarterbacks, it's different. Quarterbacks are held to a higher standard, and they're the leader of the offense. And if you want to have any success in 2024, the quarterback kind of needs to be there. Like, if he misses a day, fine. If he misses one set of an OTA of 3 days, fine. But just to not show up to any of them is just a bad reflection on the quarterback. And I think with Tua, he knows he's getting paid. It's just a matter of when. So it does appear that Tua will not hold out, and he will be present for all the OTAs, all the mini camps, mandatory, voluntary. He's going to be there once they start shortly after the draft. And not shocked by that, but it was Mike McDaniel here to confirm that. Was nice to hear. Okay, final topic. And this is one that's going to get people's blood boiling probably a little bit, but I'm going to address it anyways. Because once again, Mike McDaniel was asked this Monday at the media session, first week of free agency. It came out from Cameron Wolf, the Miami Herald, and various other places. As we spoke about, Miami Dolphins are going through a soft reset this year. A little bit of a reset, pause, as they sort of get the salary cap back under control, sort of stockpile some compensatory picks for next year and get back into... They haven't had many picks the past few years. Now they're trying to get more picks in 2025, stockpile picks. They're trying to get things back on track to where they can be active in the offseason, sort of hit a reset and, take a little bit of a step back in 2024. And a lot of Dolphins fans, and here's the deal. One, Cameron Wolf reported that when it came from the Miami Herald. That information, they're not making that up out of thin air. They're being told that from the people, the powers that be in Miami Gardens inside the Dolphins organization. A lot of fans don't like hearing that. It upsets them. And again, I think fans hear reset and they think that's like, we're going to tank and stink. No, that's not what it means. A soft reset means, though, look, we're still going to win our 9, 10, or 11 games this year, but we're not going to go balls to the wall, spend big money, and bring in pieces and like superstars, to try and make a crazy run at a Super Bowl. It just means we're going to try to do it with the pieces we have in-house, and we'll sign someone here on a one-year deal and someone there. That's what it means. And when Mike McDaniel was asked about this today, he goes, no, we're not in a reset. I don't know what you'd expect him to say. I mean, yes, we are, so don't show up to the games. It's like, no, he's not going to say that. But he said, no, the Dolphins will not be less bold. He said, no, the Dolphins will not be less aggressive. I mean, duh. Sure, on the field and in games, the Dolphins will be bold and aggressive. No one's saying they won't. He said, no, the Dolphins will not trivialize this season. I mean, no team ever trivializes a season. So, of course, he's going to try and win games. But that's not what a soft reset or a reset is. What McDaniel did today was a masterful job of tap dancing around the topic. And that's fine. That's his job. But again, the reset verbiage came from the organization. It was leaked to the reporters. That's 100% fact. And it's like, and if you don't believe they're in a soft reset or a reset or taking a pause or taking a step back, look at the signings they've done. They did not go all in to, keep Andrew Van Ginkel, keep Christian Wilkins, keep Robert Hunt, or any of those guys. Keep, Jones or Elliott as safety. Young pieces, young players, and they're replacing them with older Jordan Poyer, Shaq Barret, possibly Odell Beckham, 30-plus-year-olds, 32-plus-year-olds, 1-year Band-Aids. That's what a soft reset is. In previous years when the Dolphins were all in, they're going all in and getting superstars in their prime, still ascending players. The guys they're signing are 1-year deals, declining players who are still good, but declining players, and that's what a soft reset does. You put a Band-Aid on your pass rusher, lose Andrew Van Ginkel, put on Shaq Barret. Okay. Young player who's ascending, we'll give a 1-year deal, $7 million. Then he'll be gone in 2024. And maybe we'll draft someone this year or we'll draft someone next year to be that future piece. Boom. Same thing at safety. Same thing with Odell if they end up signing him. They're not all in. They're not making all in moves. They're not doing F them picks like they did the past 2 years. They're fighting the stockpile picks, comp picks in 2025. The strategy has clearly changed. Hence, it's a reset. And I'm not saying it's wrong. I have no problem with a reset year. In fact, I think it's kind of needed because the Dolphins have punted on the past 2 drafts. Outside of Achane and hopefully Cam Smith, which we don't even know, they've had nobody in the past 2 drafts that they can say they've added to this roster as a long-term piece. And it's fine. They haven't re-signed Kendall Lamb. They're going with Jack Driscoll instead. These are reset moves. 1-year deals for guys that you're hoping can hold the fort as we look in either this offseason or this draft or next year's offseason and next draft to get the real long-term answer to make that push for a real Super Bowl. And this year, of course, they're not going to trivialize the season, not play hard, not be bold, not be aggressive. They're just not going to be crazy about it. And that's what a soft reset is. And they can say what they want, but that's the truth. And some fans want to be blind to it, live in a bubble, and just ignore reality. It's not my job to change your mind. For the fans who are open-minded and can see what's going on in front of them, because it's right there if you look, that's what this is. And that's not saying they're going to lose this year. I still think they're going to win 9 or 10 games. I still think they're going to fight for a wild card spot. And maybe if the Bills have a bunch of injuries or if they implode, they might win the AFC East. It doesn't mean it's not a soft reset year. That's what that means. So he addressed that today. Said all the right things. That's what I like about Mike McDaniel when he talks to press. If you take him literally, that's your problem. You should never take any head coach literally, but he knows how to tap dance around questions. He knows how to throw out there a word salad, say a bunch of things that really don't mean much to not answer a question he doesn't want to answer, something our last head coach never had the ability to do. Brian Flores, every time he met with the media, it looked like a hostage video. He was scared to say anything. He didn't know what to say. He was shaking. I mean, it was bad. Mike McDaniel doesn't have that gene. Mike McDaniel is great with the media. Don't take him literally, because a lot of the stuff he says is in one ear, out the other, but you do get some good tidbits. I think the things he said about Tyreek were really telling, and it kind of makes sense why they haven't restructured his deal yet. Like, they're still looking for more information on some of the stuff, and it sounds like they're kind of like, when we get more information, then we'll see what happens there with his restructure, I should say. That and the stuff about the play calling was very eye-opening. I'm glad he admitted he thought about it, because most head coaches would be like, yeah, I'm just going to call plays, and just would sort of brush it off with arrogance. He didn't, and he's at least open to maybe adjusting if into the 2024 season it's not working. I like that. And the stuff with Odell Beckham kind of is what it is, what we knew. The Shaq Barret contract, yeah, that's what I kind of meant, is Andrew Van Ginkel only got $10 million guaranteed over 2 years. The Dolphins are giving Shaq Barrett $7 million over 1 year guaranteed. This was an all-in team. You say it's only a $3 million difference. Give me the younger player who's been here, who's ascending as a player. That's an all-in, let's win, let's try to win move. Shaq Barrett, 1 year, $6.75 million. You're counting pennies. You're counting $3 million to take an older player on and have four years at the end of that deal too. That's a soft reset move. It just is. And if some fans don't want to believe it or just want to, twist themselves into pretzels saying it's not, you don't know what you're talking about. The soft reset move is what they've done in the 1 year Band-Aid signings. But again, that's not going to prevent them from not winning. This team was still loaded, and yes, they lost some players, but it's still good enough to win. It's not an excuse. They don't have enough talent. They got more than enough talent to win, and we'll see what they do in 2024. All right, that's all for today's show. Thank you all for listening. As always, be sure to subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen, like I said at the top of the show, whether YouTube, Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. Got an announcement coming out in about 24 hours. Not a crazy announcement, just of something new coming to our website and our podcast network later this year. Not going to want to miss that. And as always, thank you guys for listening. Really, thank you. We do appreciate your support. Again, without you, there would be no us. So thank you for listening and supporting the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network. Everyone have a great Monday night. Have a great Tuesday. We'll talk to you again after a while. And folks, don't forget, we must put an end to highway profanity.
Thank you for listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast. Be sure to visit DolphinsTalk.com every day for all of your latest Miami Dolphins news.